Elder Pilcher waited impatiently as the falling star steerage bay opened onto the landing field of the spaceport. In the mid-afternoon sun, he once more recalled the dream of a shattered crystal bowl. That was really all there ever was of the recurring dream. It was oft repeated, and always left him feeling bereft when he clawed himself to consciousness.
"Your new book tape, Elder Pilcher,"
said the crewwoman, surprising him from behind. He turned to meet this older, gentle lady.
Cinda Marie, I will cherish this. The studies and lectures on hollow mass studies in hyperspace, a brand new area of science, and most relevant to my own areas of research.
"Don't treat it as a gift, Deacon,"
she responded with a hint of reproach, but good-natured.
"I expect the Order will contribute something of equal importance to the ship's library from your vast collections of logs, lectures, and notes."
You are in luck, madam. I have the complete logs and analyses from many previous voyages of the falling star.
Hemphill's voyages? I am currently researching that very thing. I do remember you mentioned it once before.
I think they're in the collection manifest.
Pilcher huffed, all hawkish and prideful. Momentarily aware of his own impiety, he hurriedly looped a haversack over his shoulder and set out quickly to mask his embarrassment.
You are welcome to check my books, Cinda. My door is always open,
were his more humble parting words, yelled over his shoulder. He had nodded farewell to Cinda and trotted down the ramp to the waiting planet below. Following his nose, Pilcher soon wandered from booth to booth in a nearby farmer's market, obviously erected here to catch passing spaceport trade. He eyed red leafy vegetables, touching them absently above and below the leaves. They would do. He transferred the merchant the appropriate money with his wand wallet. Pilcher was up on rotation to make the coming day's meals. Upon planetfall, he had immediately made for the market to secure actual planet-grown ingredients. He examined summer sausage links. A little spiced beef would make the stew taste pleasantly rustic and hearty. The street meat dealers would not or could not accept electronic monies, so he sorted actual coins in his hand before dropping a blue disc in the vendor's hand. Pilcher stopped at an outdoor baker, grabbing a baguette, but was immediately knocked to the pavement by a man in a green jacket, herring through the market. He tripped over Pilcher and fell face first in the dirt. Pilcher checked his basket and stood giving a nasty glare to the panicked man. He would have to buy a second baguette, but the first was only mildly wounded. Pilcher started to get up, holding his bent bread baton. Predictably, one might have thought by now, an attractive woman in black leathers and a man wearing a fancy modern suit also crashed into him, resulting in all four crumpling in a pile.
"Don't eat it!"
yelled the fancy modern man. He plunged his fist into the green-jacketed man's mouth, which had opened to an impossible width. Pilcher recognized that man, or rather his race, as a lizard-like Gekkurian. Gekkurians were terrible shape-changers, which Pilcher had learnt in the insurance business before joining the Order. Upon reflection, they were great shapeshifters. They just used their gift terribly.
"I said, don't eat it!"
shouted the man with the fist in the Gekkurian's mouth. He pinned its shoulder down and stomped its hand. The woman grabbed the other arm of the Gekkurian and placed her heeled boot across his neck. The entire bizarre wrestling match ended when the ensemble tumbled apart with a popping sound, signalling the release of a slime-covered fist and metal tube.
"Are you okay?"
the woman asked Pilcher, as if noticing him for the first time.
What?
He responded with a rub of his temple.
Who are you people?
"Hello," the well-dressed man offered to Pilcher. He then spun and snatched another metal object, this time a pyramid, from the individual in green. He then returned his attention to Pilcher.
I'm the doctor.
Doctor Who?
Pilcher asked. As he did so, he dusted himself off. His charcoal pants were slightly bruised, but he was otherwise fine. He straightened his grey jacket, which hung in 2 pieces from his shoulders to below his waist, their downward angles emphasizing the gravity of his position.
The doctor. Just doctor.
The Time Lord replied. To Pilcher, it seemed as though he enjoyed offering this rote introduction. He sized up the doctor and his companion. Human Velcro. I can tell these are the type of people that drag a man into their troubles, he thought. Best not to get involved.
And this is Romana, my assistant.
And this is just Doctor, my assistant.
Romana supplied pointedly. Pilcher looked confused, then turned back to the baker, who offered him a fresh baguette. Probably a bribe to go away.
Street thief!
The doctor shouted in the face of the somewhat lizard man in the green jacket. Any attention from others in the market had long since dissipated. The doctor, deflated by the lack of interest in prosecuting this emerald thief, inquired,
Excuse me, what do you do with street thieves on this planet? Hanging? Beheading? Bee stings to the armpits?
Pilcher's face was wearily passive, a barrier to engagement. He assessed the street thief and then the doctor. Momentarily, he mused whether this occasion was the real event when his recurring dream of shattered glassware occurred. A premonition? With a baguette in place of crystal? He shook this thought away, and in a carefully measured tone he answered,
Honestly, I couldn't care less. It's none of my affair.
The doctor thoughtlessly released the thief. Pilcher walked away from the doctor, intending to continue shopping. The woman snatched the lizard man from the doctor before it could escape. She masterfully placed a pinch on one of its few pain-causing nerve clusters. She must have been very careful to avoid causing the creature to shed its limbs, or worse.
Excuse me?
The doctor said as he caught up with Pilcher, by now at a bubbly pink globular fruit booth.
Is this a high-crime area?
You're still here?
Pilcher said without turning. He made an effort to let his eyes sink into his skull.
No. You are the first mugger I have ever seen. Good day.
Do you think mugging is boring? Wait! I was the one being mugged.
You are doubtless also a simple mugger, involved in some petty turf squabble. Good day to you.
The grey-haired, aggressively eyebrowed man looked nonplussed.
That's not supposed to happen.
How about the thief? Should I release him now or wait for us all to be locked up?
Oh, release him. I already recovered my sonic screwdriver and the anti-attractivizer. Where are we?
The doctor's final remark was directed at Pilcher.
Oh, finally. A sensible question.
Pilcher said with a roll of his eyes.
You are in a farmer's market outside the spaceport. Good day.
What?
The doctor shook his head fiercely.
It's like talking to my first self, Romana. Again.
Excuse me. We landed off target on this planet. Which spaceport is this?
The only spaceport. If you arrived from anywhere else, then there is only one destination from here. The end of the universe.
Pilcher watched as Romana released the thief. Even as an elder, he was allowed to enjoy watching women abusing street thieves. His mind had to stop to reassess that thought.
Oh, one of those.
The doctor replied somewhat cavalierly, derailing Pilcher's attempts at mental housekeeping.
What do you mean, one of those? Wherever you've come from, this is the only spaceport, of any note at least, and the only other destination left is the ever-decreasing edge of the universe. Catch it while you can, before it catches you.
Ah, the multitudinous isolated ends of the universe. The ever-accelerating expansion of space-time, shrinking its visible boundaries ever smaller, until they contain only a handful of, or even singular, star systems. What few of them still exist to boot. Naturally, wherever life forms find themselves trapped in these terminal, ever-decreasing circles, they think they are all there is. After all, from their perspective, they're right. But I have seen more than one of these ends, and they are never the same.
Pilcher looked dumbstruck, unable to tell if this strange being was babbling insane delusions or, More disturbingly, speaking from experience, Romana had no such doubts.
Which ends have you seen play out?
She asked curiously. The doctor maintained an air of purely academic interest and insouciance, at least at first.
I once saw the last of the human race, or so they thought, trapped in a place like, and yet unlike, this. Eventually, they quite lost their heads. No, correction, bodies.
At this point, his mood darkened, and his tone acquired genuine regret.
Then there was the institute I once built, with friends of mine, some of whom you met, Romana. The last I saw of that place was in another space-time cul-de-sac such as this. I would rather not rake over those old coals, at least not right now, if it's all the same with you.
Romana inclined her head in acquiescence and let the matter lie. Pilcher had listened to their exchange with a mixture of fascination and disbelief. He shook his head to clear it of these disturbing distractions.
My order operates a tourist expedition to the edge of existence. In fact, I must get back to the falling star to check in. Good day.
The orderly explorers.
Romana said with a wry smile.
If it's safe, I would like to see the edge of the universe.
Indeed. You're standing on the last living planet in the known universe, and you say you want to go somewhere else? Amazing,
Said a sarcastic Pilcher.
I don't believe it.
Said Romana to the doctor.
It's like there are two of you. How irritating.
That's what I said.
The doctor pointed out. Romana then held up the metal pyramid with the flashing lights on its sides. Pilcher was captivated by the flashes. They were meaningless to the elder, but the doctor's train of thought seemed directed by them to a new course.
Of all places to be, indeed. Well, we can't fly from here accurately. Too much temporal turbulence for precise touchdown near the edge.
The doctor began.
Could you accommodate 2 additional passengers and a large piece of luggage, mister?
Pilcher.
Came the terse response. He didn't want to lengthen this interaction any further, but she made it tempting. To watch her look out at the edge of existence for the first time, it might humble her.
It will be the first time this ship has ever ventured to the other side of the dust cloud,
He said, almost as a warning.
A smoke ring of the Big Bang, eh? The contracting boundary of your universe must be a most effective broom.
Romana continued with a seldom used reach into her negotiation skills.
We would be ever so grateful if we could journey with you to explore the unknown regions beyond the dust cloud, and through the dark matter regions beyond this system.
We would?
The doctor said, a little confused by the personal politics. Pilcher was having none of it, or at least very little.
I can arrange for you to sail with us in steerage, but you could be called upon to work for your voyage.
The doctor raised a finger to object when Romana cut him off.
Perfect. The doctor will arrange for our luggage to be brought onto the steerage deck. Supply you with all the relevant details.
The doctor's eyebrows stiffened at her.
How will we be making the journey into the cloud?
Pilcher smiled to himself. This woman worked the doctor's responses into comic straits. Why not play it up? Pilcher handed a bag of groceries to Romana.
We will travel in hyperspace to avoid the navigational hurdles of hollow mass. We can travel at light speed. Previous flights have mapped the safe paths outward. A few were lost to small black stars, but those have been charted now.
That leaves us, the first flight out from here to the other side.
Indeed, the first passenger one at any rate.
You seem well informed, Mr. Pilcher. For a clergyman, that is.
I am no monk, Doctor. I am a decently educated man, committed to the work of the order.
What is the work of the order?
Pilcher paused noticeably. He had to arrange the next answer in his head.
The work of the order, in my case, is my own.
What's your work, then?
Today, my rotation assignment is to feed the order.
The doctor and Romana shared a glance, intrigued by the holy man's odd turn of phrase and elliptical replies. Aboard the Falling Star, in the steerage bay, a sense-assaulting screech of metal on metal rang out over the massive deck. The tall blue police box breathed itself into solid form with wheezing and grinding sounds. The door squeaked open,
and the doctor, finishing the task with his foot, pushed his way through with 3 shopping bags. Romana followed with 2 more modest carriers. Then Pilcher appeared with 1.
I must thank you for your assistance, Doctor. Normally, I avoid powered conveyance as a matter of mental purification. Today, however, it was very welcome.
Think nothing of it, Padre, especially considering the inconvenience we've caused you.
Won't your dog get up to mischief left to his own devices?
K9 enjoys absorbing data from the external sensors and data banks. He will be well amused. The TARDIS, however, didn't appreciate that short flight. Even this far from the edge, it is tough going.
No, she did not. The old girl doesn't normally have this much trouble with short hops these days.
That field you've been tracking, whether an artifact of the end of the universe, or something even more mysterious, is tearing up her insides.
She gazed around, apparently making a mental count of the passengers in the bay.
What do we do when we travel into the edge?
I've disconnected the drive systems. Let's hope our more conventional flight remains trivial and trouble-free. We should hopefully have no more use for the TARDIS until after our sightseeing tour is concluded. The doctor mused. He looked up, also taking in the large bay. It was clearly a disused cargo bay, cleverly repurposed for passengers. Labour provided by the Order led to nothing but profit from the football field-sized area. Grey-green aluminium plating provided sparse decor.
We won't be using the TARDIS to make an escape, will we, Doctor?
Escape to where, madam?
Asked an approaching braided officer.
Forgive me, I didn't mean to intrude. Any escape provision in flight is valuable knowledge.
Dr. Romana, may I introduce Captain Teal?
Good day, Captain.
So this is your adventuring machine, Doctor?
Asked Captain Teal, nodding to the blue box.
In an emergency, could you take on passengers in the event our own life pods failed?
Is that likely? The doctor asked in a pantomimed whisper.
Not at all. But we are on an expedition, you know. All options are of interest. If we collided with some uncharted dark matter, could it save us?
Normally, but local hollow mass and other temporal effects interfere with the machine. It is currently useless.
Too bad. Still good to have you with us,
Said Teal. He then turned to the religious engineer.
Good flight, Elder Pilcher.
The captain had been walking around the perimeter of the bay and continued his tour until he made his way out. Does it strike you as odd that the captain didn't ask us why cooking staff would bring their own space vehicle on board? The doctor wondered. Pilcher froze, initially unable to answer the doctor.
It does strike one as a bit odd. Yes, it does.
He finally conceded.
Heads up.
A crewman walked around them lugging a crate.
Stick with me if you want to be safe.
He said archly, leaning towards the 2 Time Lords.
Ensign Paul Long, the man with the most boring job in space.
Explained Pilcher. He then opened a door with his keycard.
Allow me to assist.
Thanks. And hey, someone has to watch that needle in the atmosphere cabin.
Paul called over his shoulder.
Any bets for the return pool?
He then added.
Of course, I'm in for safe return.
Always the sure bet.
Said Ensign Long while he ducked into a cargo elevator.
Optimist.
Shouted Pilcher.
His station is the most boring, but the man always invents excitement by casting the odds for the ship's return.
Pilcher noted to the doctor and Romana.
I hope you're not offended by my asking you to assist me in the galley today.
He then said, showing the first hints of concern for the feelings of these 2 strangers.
And meet everyone in steerage?
Romana asked, shooting a look at the doctor.
I think we would actually enjoy a mundane day's work in exchange for this voyage.
The doctor had renewed examination of the metal pyramid with a flashing light. Pilcher did his best to ignore this.
You might be overqualified for the serving line, but I won't keep you from it. If the 3 of us slice vegetables, we can make short order of the stew.
A grey-skinned man with cropped hair and a bald stripe shaved off centre approached Pilcher. The tightly muscled tattooed man sported light leather and steel armour, as well as a metal staff ending in an axe or halberd at either end. Romana and the doctor parted for the man as he stormed through.
Priestly Pilcher, I inquire where I may bunk and muster.
Mesolo, I had heard you were joining the Order for this flight. Your trainer should have assigned you these?
My trainer failed in his duties. Any lowly assignment you make for this warrior will be affected with rage and honor.
Pilcher met Masolo's gesture with a bow.
You are of an amazing people. If you wish, you may muster with us for chow and bunk in one of my block's meditation rooms for added privacy. I hope you might share your philosophy and martial arts with us, no matter how slow learners we might be.
Difficult to read, Masolo might have been happy with the directions Pilcher gave him. Both men nodded and Masolo left. Well done. It's not easy to stay on the good side of an irritated member of the Waltak sect. You might have saved our lives, yes?
I agree, it is difficult to tell their humor from their blood anger. Makes the Orionist warriors engaging,
You sell the romantic aspects of the man short, I suspect. But they do keep you on your toes.
As an aside, Romana pointed out,
I negotiated an excursion through their region of space in a previous regeneration. A most marked sense of honor.
Pilcher and the doctor inclined their heads in agreement.
Elder Pilcher.
Called a woman shrilly behind Pilcher. Her squeaky voice caused him to jump. Grand Central Station here, isn't it? The doctor muttered with a twisted smile.
I borrowed your log tape on the Hemp Hill voyage.
The woman continued enthusiastically as she circled him.
I do hope there is an illustrated companion somewhere.
Ask Commander Halsey. He is a budding archivist in his own right. If he doesn't have something to help you, he will know someone who does.
I will do that, Deacon.
Cinder Marie replied. Then, turning to the doctor and Romana,
Good to have met you, Mr. Ma'am.
Cinder strolled out of sight as quickly as she blew in. The doctor remained motionless, leaving Romana to ask,
Who was that energetic whirlwind?
Cinda Marie. Sad story. The very efficient ship's research librarian. However, remained single her entire life before coming aboard due to a promise ring, only to find her love had been left dead by an ill-fated expedition. Messy problems for the previous captain.
The doctor and Romana nodded their understanding.
Well now, if you'd follow me to the galley, the kitchen, this way. I hope she hasn't upset my bookshelf.
Pilcher led the way into the steerage kitchen with both bag and book in hands. The doctor and Romana followed with their loads. A young lady in uniform and apron looked up sharply as they bustled into the kitchen.
Hugh-Wen.
Pilcher said in simple greeting. He set his bag on a table and nodded to Romana, who followed suit.
Romana, Doctor. This young lady is my right hand on this voyage. Hugh-Wen, let's organize a stew out of this little lot. I'll be right back to help in a jiffy. Masolo and Cinda are on the prowl. I'll see to their needs, then be right back.
Hugh-Wen. What a lovely name. What does it mean?
Sadly, not a clue. Let's see what's in the bag.
Hugh-Wen unloaded the fresh haul onto the table, making a mental inventory as she went. It was not hard for the Time Lords to know as her lips moved.
Oh, damn.
Hugh-Wen flinched when she opened a wrapped tuna, absent-mindedly spilling oily dampness over one hand. She ran to rinse it immediately. Don't fret. The doctor barked decisively and drew his pyramidal instrument, scanning in a circle. I'm sure it will all be fine. Nothing. How odd. Hugh-Wen giggled at the doctor.
I was only worried about handling the tuna. My doctor told me to be careful when handling high-mercury fish. Many of the order are pescatarians.
Must be the deck plating, whispered the doctor to himself, shaking the widget, seemingly oblivious to her words.
Oh?
Romana gladly took the tuna off her hands.
I'm sorry.
Yes, me too. It means there are tasks I just cannot do. At least for now.
Tell us about the father.
Romana cheerfully said, seeking to break the mood. Then she caught the doctor's disapproving eye. He gestured to the ingredients and made a keep talking gesture with his hands. As he scanned behind the distracted crew lady, Romana finally succeeded in changing the subject, at least a little.
What are we making? The doctor and I haven't made fresh food in 100 years.
100 years? You tell many jokes. Your friend is so serious. That must be why.
Yes, it's an expression, I suppose.
Let's see if we can get those greens washed and sliced. I can glove up and work the sausage and beef if one of you can tackle the tuna.
The doctor pocketed the pyramid and raised a filleting knife.
Oh, let me handle the tuna. You should have seen me in Venice. A beep sounded in the air. The ship's internals ground underfoot with several bangs and clanks.
All hands prepare for liftoff.
A speaker blared.
Should we strap down or something?
Romana asked. Huen giggled at them. I guess not. The doctor shrugged. He continued slashing vigorously with his blade. With a sensation no worse than the tug of a departing lift, the vessel carried them into the space between the planet and ultimately the cloud barrier. In the rest of the bay, transparent viewports opened to allow passengers to look out. Huen reached for a specific flavor button on the Sagittarius brand Food Express machine.
No. Like this.
Romana reached in front of Huen with a dab of oil and some peppers.
Just soften them and then break them open in the frying pan.
My grandmother cooked that way,
Huen said. Uncharacteristically, Romana blushed. Old fart, whispered the doctor with a wicked grin. Luckily for the doctor, Pilcher chose that moment to return to the kitchen. All appeared to be running smoothly, but he did raise an eyebrow at the doctor and Romana's most primitive cooking techniques. More staff from Pilcher's order joined them. A line was already forming for the evening meal. It was time. The doctor was unusually happy making small talk with the crewmen as the line filed through. Even Pilcher, with his limited exposure to the doctor, found him surprisingly gregarious. Overly educated and worldly, the doctor and Romana had not struck him as in possession of the gift of the gab. Pilcher turned and found the massive tuna was filleted and seasoned, ready for cooking. This was going to be a nice, easy flight, he thought to himself.
Sawyer!
Huen called out for another staffer to replace her as she carried emptied containers to the back.
Chief Yeager, you made the front of the line today.
Pilcher said as he took his place in the serving line beside Huen, helping to feed the sudden influx of off-shift men and women. Yes, I smelt something different polluting the ship. What's that? The chief was pointing to something that could have been salad or eyeball soup.
Romana, what do you call this dish?
Pilcher asked with a frown.
Improvisano de Galactica,
Answered Romana with a purse of her lips. Pilcher looked none the wiser and ventured.
A chutney, then?
Romana shrugged.
Oh, that sounds like a splendid word.
Right, said the chief warily. Well, it won't go away if you don't feed it to me. Now Ensign Long trotted up to sample everything and stuffed a roll in his mouth.
Thank you.
Eating at your station continues to be against regulations.
Pilcher yelled as the man scurried out of sight.
What do I care? At least he won't spill it in the galley.
Bridge officer coming through! The line of hungry crewmen and members of the order rapidly made space for a yeoman with an enclosed tray, possibly meant for Captain Teal. The yeoman rushed up and scooped a selection of victuals. He tasted a bit with his finger and grimaced. He raced back to the bridge mess. Naturally, bridge officers would not dine with the crewmen.
Doctor, whatever you have done with my kitchen, the crew seems happy.
Pilcher conceded, turning to the doctor's station on the line. He found it occupied by another crewman.
That's because he mistook Mimas aphrodisiacs for salt.
Romana noted. Pilcher felt his skin turning pale.
It's a joke. He's a mad scientist. He cooks by experimentation.
Where did he go then? The just doctor just slipped out?
After experimenting on himself with alien food, probably to disgorge.
Compulsive gambler, someone said. Romana was distracted by this snatch of conversation. It came from a pair of robed order members as they passed through the line. That was him just left the bay, Ensign Long. Watch for him.
Why?
He never repays a loan.
Compulsive payer of debts he is not then.
Never. The falling star rumbled. Members of the order and regular crew alike paused at a tone in the speakers.
Secure for hyperspace.
Came the alert.
Cover the dishes!
Pilcher shouted. The people in the chow line grabbed at handholds. Romana, while unprepared, successfully did the same. A ripple passed through the galley. Optical tremors with a side order of time distortions. Light blurred to extremes of red and blue, then returned to normal. Minute motes of dust were now sprinkled around the kitchen. probably from over-enthusiastic fire suppressors. Unpleasant sensations moved through Pilcher's sinuses.
That was nasty.
Said Romana, pinching her nose and wincing.
My apologies. That was really rough and odd. I didn't have a chance to confirm the secure order,
said Pilcher, frowning. He turned to find the doctor clinging to the galley door by his fingernails, back pressed tight against it. He eyed Pilcher with a frenzied look. You could have warned us that the ship's hyperdrive was not compatible with humanoid life, the doctor said, pinching his face.
I didn't know,
began Pilcher. The doctor shook his head wearily. Tourism isn't what it used to be. Pilcher looked around the bay. At least there were no immediate space sickness concerns, he noted with some relief. The doctor and Romana were given bunks in the steerage bay for the night. Pilcher meditated in his cabin. He spent hours every night immersed in study of the Bible and other ancient literature. He searched for wisdom, hoping it would mould his mind for the day he would leave the order. Bored with his study, Pilcher leafed through a new book on hollow mass. Pilcher found the physics to be confusing nonsense. Then again, the notions had been scribed for far smarter than he. Pilcher walked in the dark, down an open corridor. He carried that crystal bowl. Pilcher was dreaming. He knew it. He knew how it would end. This nightmare version of a memory that itself had been rubbed out of existence through the mind's eraser, self-preservation. Clenching the bowl, he determined not to trip this time, not to drop it, not to fall on it. This time, this one time, he would throw himself on his back when the inevitable time came, to prevent the shattering of the bowl. As he felt his ankle twist to the wrong angle, as it always did, as he knew he was falling once again, he let his whole body crumble. This time, unbidden, his strength increased with adrenaline, and his clenching hands pulled the bowl apart as he fell. His knees struck the ground. Pilcher woke in his dark cabin, clawing the air. His book still lay open. Frustrated, he lowered his hands, got up, and marched out. QM must have roused the galley staff, including the newcomers, long before Pilcher arrived, and got breakfast off to a fine start. He poured himself a mug of coffee. Gazing through a portal, he attempted to lose himself for a moment in the mystifying blue and violet of hyperspace distortions. A poor choice, he realized. He did not like it. Or rather, he could not relate to it. He might as well be reading the equations in the hollow mass textbook.
Now turning at waypoint 1, falling star surpassing light speed,
came a voice from the tannoy. Wandering around the bay, Pilcher found the doctor and Romana taking some kind of radiation measurement with their strange pyramid device. Pilcher saw no reason to worry over it, assuming the doctor would notify him if there was a health concern. An alarm wailed and blue lights flashed throughout the ship.
What was that?
Romana demanded. Life support warning? The doctor guessed.
Are you proficient in climate control?
Adequate.
Come on, we are the closest relief.
The trio ran down the hallway, led by Pilcher, and up a ladder. They exited the ladder tube in front of an engineering hatch. The door read, Life support. Pilcher tapped on the lock. No response. He punched in an override code, and a screen flickered into life. It revealed Ensign Long sitting motionless at his station. The door still would not open in spite of the override, but an environmental warning light began to flash.
Ensign, answer me, Paul.
Ensign Long remained unmoving. Pilcher typed a higher-level override command in the lock.
Fortunately, with my flight hours, I am functionally a chief, but my card won't open this door. Those lights mean there's poison. When this override opens the hatch, cover your mouths and help me reset every system to decontamination.
Of course, the doctor assured him. He then leaned on the door. Pressure. The door feels bent out of shape, bowing outwards.
Catch these!
Romana cried as she pulled a red wrecking bar and axe from the fire control door, then tossed them to the men.
We still might have a slim chance to save him if we can crack open the door,
Pilcher said grimly, but his voice held little hope. After some strenuous efforts, the doctor and Pilcher prized the door partly open. A cloud of gas blew out, and a pressure wave slapped into their faces.
After blinking their eyes clear, they could see Ensign Long sitting at his station even now. However, as the cloud of vapour rushed past them, they caught the stench of acid. The ensign dissolved into a mist of bloody droplets.
Oh my God. We've killed him.
Quickly, man, check the atmosphere. Was the acid effectively neutralized?
The doctor and Romana pored over the switches and dials in frantic efforts to help the elder do just that.
These shutoffs, I think these gases were confined in there.
We didn't kill him, Pilcher,
said Romana, kneeling and picking up a shiny cylinder just inside the door.
It has a timer, reading 00:00, no minutes, no seconds, no life.
He had been mostly liquefied for some time, more than likely. Then held in stasis, perhaps even overnight.
How do you know?
The grey-haired Time Lord touched a tray of galley food with a bitten roll.
The tray was barely touched, see for yourself. Even the pressure change did little to harm it. The food is from last night, uneaten. He certainly had an appetite when we last saw him. He must have been interrupted almost as soon as he entered the room.
Out,
said Pilcher, his training taking over. Firefighters now bundled from the ladder they had climbed earlier, and he blocked them from going any further. He punched up the bridge on the hallway intercom.
This is Elder Pilcher at the life support control room. There has been an accident. I am in charge of the scene until a bridge officer can take over.
Understood,
came the response. They did not need to know the details to know Pilcher was discreetly reporting a fatality over the open comms.
XO is on his way down.
The falling star continued on its flight through hyperspace. Hours passed in the muted hum of normal ship's operations, yet confusion and doubt gripped the crew members. Pilcher and the travellers he had adopted retired to his cabin. The man known only as the Doctor drummed his fingers along the arm of his chair. He never seemed to sleep. A frustrated irritation occasionally seemed to possess him. Not expressing his thoughts left Pilcher to assume he'd either gone inexplicably mad or was so deeply lost within his mind he was driven to utter distraction. Even the Lady Romana fell silent as her gentle small talk ran dry. A normally rushing spring silenced by the summer drought of Paul Long's death, Pilcher mused to himself. Neither Time Lord had had much to say to anyone since Pilcher had collected statements and written his report for the XO. The Doctor, not having an adequate alibi in the minutes leading up to the accident, was put in isolation under Pilcher's care, which put both of them in a sort of house arrest since the order did not employ locks on the accommodation doors.
Paul Long making a mistake that cost only his own life is too remarkably convenient. I don't buy it.
No, it was murder. There was a gas grenade.
Pilcher looked embarrassed.
A good point,
he conceded, coughing.
We need a motive. And means. Who has access to such devices?
Any officer enrolled in combat training, but they aren't intended for killing.
It was done with a decaying stasis field, plus some corrosive agent, possibly rocket fuel. In addition, the increased pressure hastened the liquefaction. But it, the stasis grenade, had the added effect of halting the moment of death in real time until the door was forced. I've seen something similar before. But who and why? Who and why?
The bridge officers are almost certainly going to focus on the three of us, you being newcomers.
On a science tourism flight? Pah!
What percentage of your ship's complement is actual crew?
Maybe 50%.
How does one alter the life support conditions for one maintenance section only?
It surely would require manual intervention, but it can be done. Was done. But who would want to?
Tampering with life support in flight? Someone with motivations overriding all logic and sense for self-preservation.
The warrior Mesolo did not come through the line for food. Where was he?
I shall find a polite way to ask Mesolo for his alibi, but I don't think Mesolo would have used covert means to kill a man. And why would he anyway?
We are of course assuming it was a deliberate killing of Long. Likely as that doubtless is, what might have happened if he hadn't returned to eat at his station?
The sabotage only affected the maintenance station.
Pilcher tiredly pressed his eye sockets with his palms.
Assuming the event occurred without him there. Nothing, really. Paul, or someone, would have found the room contaminated and used an environment suit to repair it.
We didn't need suits.
The corrosive agent had done its worst on Long and nullified itself by then. Pilcher began pacing with growing agitation.
What if Masolo was in a Waltak warrior blood rage?
He thought for a moment.
Could there be gamblers on the ship who wanted to put a hit on Long? Could Long have clumsily or intentionally killed himself?
No, unlikely. Pilcher studied the doctor and Romana intently now. How little he knew of them. The doctor could have easily killed Long and been back to the galley unnoticed in the hubbub of mealtime.
You don't do restricted movement well, do you?
No, I guess not.
Since we have an abundance of time on our hands, who exactly are the Order?
I've been looking forward to that one. Just not now.
You can put it off, but she'll just ask again.
The Order is a simple collective of individuals practicing piety, philosophically not unlike Buddhists, personally practicing any number of religions. Its members take on whatever mission they are given or drawn to while practicing daily meditation. We have few personal possessions. Not pursuing materialism, we have a drive to explore self, perfect ideas and inventions, study. In short, our time in the Order provides an opportunity for growth and healing. Largely, the Order is temporary. People put life on hold and solve their problems while serving.
Space hippies?
Oh, I hope not, though the merchant marines do operate the ship. Perhaps you should ask them.
What is your mission of growth?
Self-discovery.
Enigmatically vague. I like enigmatic and vague, began the doctor, but was interrupted by a shudder running through the ship. Instinctively, Pilcher grabbed a handhold, then let go. I am surprised by the size of your personal library, said the doctor as he ran his finger across the numerous tape volumes, the vibration already forgotten. Then, smiling ironically, he continued, For a man who eschews materialism.
All part of my expanding duties as an elder, I have been training to perform additional shipboard duties, hence my partial familiarity with life support.
The power cut out and back on. A tone rang throughout the ship.
Please secure for emergency return to real space,
Called a terrified voice over the intercom. Hyperspace had vanished from the outer portholes, and abruptly the falling star reappeared in normal space.
Collision alert.
Began the same voice as the falling star rapidly decelerated. Pilcher was thrown with the doctor and Romana forwards into the bulkhead. Emergency lighting came on, ineffective and barely illuminating the edge of the door.
Adverse conditions during the jump and again during re-entry. Intriguing, wouldn't you say?
Quite, and I don't find the captain lacking in competence.
I just had an idea.
He ran to a wall terminal. Swiping his keycard, he punched in some codes.
Give me a moment to review some of the logs. There. I am in the ship's pouch, the bank. There are a couple of people that have coined out some debts while on this flight. Ensign Long's account actually shows some growth during the flight. We know he was a gambler, and it seems a winner. He has probably made a sore customer or two.
Well done. If we can track down the losing gamblers, we will have our pool of suspects.
Not necessarily. There also remains the matter of the child.
What? He's a father?
Delinquent father. Ewan confessed it to me, and I attempted to counsel Paul before his death. He was utterly against taking responsibility for the child. Please don't repeat this.
Lucky guess.
Do we have a suspected killer in the galley?
A woman scorned?
There is another loose thread. I heard in the serving line that Masolo's trainer was Paul Long.
They were at odds about something.
Not a likely suspect. Masolo is a Waltak. He was quite angry with his trainer over something, I agree. Remember, however, he is a much more capable and direct killer than most of the ship's population.
He would leave an indelible fingerprint on the corpse, his own mark. No, we've missed something. Bridge.
Pilcher called into the nearest intercom. No response came back.
Bridge, are you able to respond?
Pilcher asked with mounting dread. This is Chief Burkov on the command deck. A voice finally came. Pilcher recognized the name.
He's an engineer. What's he doing up there?
I regret to inform you that the bridge has sustained damage by collision. All officers, chief and above, please report to the secondary control room. I am running this incident until a ranking officer can be appointed.
Oh my God. I think he's sealing the turbo lift doors that open onto a vented
Bridge.
Help him, Romana. Go with Elder Pilcher and make sure a suitable officer takes command.
Do you mean me? I am only an elder and not a merchant marine.
On this ship your rank is chief, and I'll wager you have as many flight hours in training as anyone else, based on the size of your library, that is.
I never should have shown you.
Pilcher grumbled, then led Romana away. Some time later, Romana returned exasperated. Pilcher trailed behind her in a mood. Back already? The doctor noted. He had not moved since last they saw him.
You're not going to believe this. All the command officers were in a meeting on the bridge level. Now sealed off. No bridge linkages are working. Pilcher is ranking command chief.
The most qualified of the unqualified crew.
Bah! The rest of the cowards didn't want to take the responsibility and have the blemish on their record of losing a ship.
Losing a ship?
The command deck may have been scraped clean off by a collision with hollow mass.
Ghastly. And yet, as with much today, extremely unlikely.
An unsolved murder, a wrecked ship at the edge of the universe, and possibly a dead bridge crew. Did I mention we are also stuck in a field of hollow mass objects?
Oh, fear not. After the immediate damage is repaired, just navigate free using conventional rockets. Shouldn't be too hard from the backup control room.
And then hop back to hyperspace? I'll have to discuss that with the engineer and navigator. Sounds promising, though, when you say it fast.
We've been...
Yes, I know. You've been through this sort of thing before. Why don't you take command of the ship?
The lights came up to full power.
Your engineer is a good one.
Yes. This terminal is unhelpful. I need more data, and the ship's main computer has it. Do you have an inference engine on board?
In the library, open access.
Then take us to your library, while the crew, your crew, rescue the bridge officers.
You think they are alive?
Doesn't matter what we think. Just keep them busy. Keep their morale up.
Good idea.
Said Pilcher, thinking back to the image of the shattered bowl.
I'm not prepared for this.
Of course not. How can any of us prepare for unexpected events? Don't let imposter syndrome overtake you, Elder Pilcher. Acting Captain Pilcher. Every day a man faces a new set of experiences. They simply unfold, raising the bar. Past events prepare you for what you are ultimately able to handle.
That's the silliest thing you've said today. But I take your meaning. Let's go to the library.
Pilcher gave a short series of commands as though he expected them to be followed. He was convincing. Pilcher led the people from the TARDIS to the library. He waved to Cinder Marie and then motioned the Doctor and Romana to an alcove with a terminal in it.
Have you used an inference engine before?
It takes natural language input and presents results from all its vast historical knowledge using artificial intelligence. Inference engines made a resurgence after the colossal failure of so-called big data TM wars. I assume it has access to every tome in your library.
Yes. Can I help you find something?
For the moment, it's classified.
Cinder left and their alcove closed.
Computer, open clearance per acting Captain Pilcher. Scan all transactions of the ship's pouch that pay in or out to Ensign Paul Long.
Display the names of others connected to these transactions.
This all looks familiar and unremarkable, if only it were possible to ask who was most likely to kill him.
Computer, display all crew and passengers that have ever served with Paul Long.
Some of these people aren't on the ship. Some served with him during the Hemp Hill voyages. No surprises that I can see.
Computer,
Display all shipboard connections to Paul Long up to 1 degree of separation. Repeat that last query, displaying only tax registration numbers, said the doctor. The list changed. Display records from the previous query minus the ones listed before. 1 tax number remained. The air left the trio's lungs in gasps.
That was a lucky hunch.
All in the delivery. But that number looks fraudulent. Open the debug list. I want to see the computer language translation of my inquiry.
Doctor.
Yes, I see it. An exclusion mask.
I don't understand.
A list of aliases was appended to my inquiry, and yours. That list was excluded from the output. A particular person's numerous last names, Thomas, Peters, Antony, and you'll see the last one. Of course, you know the first name.
What was the record that was hidden?
A marriage license. I would guess someone has been expanding their training in low-yield improvised weapons.
Yes, it all had to do with Hemphill.
Pilcher agreed sadly, shaking his head.
What a shame.
He printed the document. With a heavy heart, he then summoned security to the library. They were let into the alcove by Cinder Marie. To the lead officer, he said,
Arrest the people named in this document.
Sir, there's only one name here.
That's the order.
The man cuffed the upset woman.
Cinda, you murdered Ensign Paul Long. Why?
The ship's librarian collapsed into a chair, burying her face in her cuffed hands.
Michael and I were so deeply in love. We were to be married.
Sniffed Cinder Marie. She fought back tears with some little success.
It was your logs that filled in the blanks.
She hissed at Elder Pilcher, staring furiously at him. Then her face crumbled in grief.
Paul Long killed my one true love. The ship's inquiry did not reflect that crewman Long was negligent, but Hemphill's personal records did. Michael died EVA, wearing a suit Long skipped inspecting. Paul Long was downgraded in pay and removed from structural engineering by Hemphill. But it was him. He failed to seal Michael's spacesuit correctly.
Cinder Marie, indeed the entire room, lapsed into silence. There was nothing more to say. Pilcher climbed down the ramp to the last spaceport in the universe, wearing white robes over his uniform. His hand rested on the hovering hospital bed of Captain Teal. A medical detail met him at the foot of the ramp.
Please give the injured all the care and healing available,
commanded Pilcher.
Captain,
croaked Teal.
Take care of my ship.
Captain.
Pilcher said reassuringly.
She'll be here waiting for you.
A grating, grinding sound, now healthier, or at least stronger than before, echoed through the steerage bay behind them.
Human Velcro,
said Pilcher with a smile.
Masters, mistresses, the Doctor requires materials in order to maintain the TARDIS and ensure continued functionality. He similarly requires carbon-based comestibles to sustain his own biological functions and existence. Master would never say this, but he requires aid beyond that supplied by this unit in order to acquire these. To aid the Doctor in his various tasks and creations, this can be most effectively achieved via Patreon or Substack subscriptions, or through donations directly to PayPal. Or if you desire physical goods in return for your contributions, written accounts of my travels with the Doctor are also available on Amazon. Links are in the description below. Thank you, Masters, mistresses.